Welcome to The Aspiring Kryptonians, a podcast for Superman fans, hosted by Superman fans, and focused around all things, you guessed it, Superman. After all, we are aspiring Kryptonians. From comics, TV, film and animation, each week we discuss our thoughts on the latest releases, news and even some retrospective reviews. So without further ado, let's get the show on the road. Hello and welcome to episode 25 of the Aspiring Kryptonians podcast with me, Tasmin, and the rest of the team, Ashley and Evan.
Hey. Hi guys.
So this episode is dedicated to all things Action Comics, and that is because we have a very special guest with us today, which is writer Phillip Kennedy Johnson. Here he is.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Yeah, not too bad. Thank you for taking the time to be here, with us again. I think this is the second time we've had you on. So
it is, yeah. Yeah, it's my pleasure. It's good to see you guys again. I'm great. How have you guys been?
Yeah, pretty good. A lot's changed since the last time we spoke.
Yeah, kind of a lot's happened. How's little Cal doing?
He's good. He's not very well at the moment, but he's getting through the other end of it, so he's okay. Okay, good. Well, yeah, like I said, today we're going to focus mostly on Action Comics 1037 because it was one hell of an issue. But we're also going to talk about previous issues, what's to come, and how this all came about, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, please.
So we're also live as well. So hello to anybody listening now. And if you guys have any questions or comments for Philip, then feel free to send them in. Philip, I don't know if you've been listening to the previous episodes, but I've been calling you PKJ. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, Phillip Kennedy Johnson is kind of a lot, so PKJ is kind of the handle that sort of evolved from that. So yeah, it's totally fine.
Okay. So we'll start with our review or discussion on Action Comics 1037, which of course is written by yourself, and then we'll go into the wider thoughts on the previous issues because. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I've kind of gone back to all the issues just to make sure I haven't missed anything before this interview. So we'll go through the covers first, shall we?
Let's do it.
Yeah. So the standard cover is by Daniel Sampere and Alejandro Sanchez, and yeah, you can see it just there. It's epic. It's a great cover. The detail's excellent, and it's a great tease for what's to come in this issue.
Yes, and the next cover is one of my favorite covers of all time so far because it's just so classic. Look at that.
Yeah.
Isn't it awesome? Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this one's by
Tedesco.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, no, Julian's been doing unbelievable work on these variants. And Daniel, of course, has made himself into like this new, like his vision of Superman, which is kind of what Superman looks like now, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So both these covers are really special. But yeah, I always love seeing Tedesco's stuff.
Yeah, I was saying last episode, I hope he's gearing up for like a coffee table book with all these because they're all just fantastic.
I know, man. We're actually doing my day job. I'm in one of the military bands in Washington D.C. and we're putting together this. We have a relationship with a great composer named Julie Giroux, who is a huge comic fan and loves Superman specifically. And she's written this piece dedicated to Superman called Fields of Gold. And we're playing it at this huge band clinic in Chicago that happens everywhere called the Midwest Clinic. That's happening this week. I leave in a few days for that.
Wow. And
we decided to play Fields of Gold and to accompany it with imagery from my Superman run.
Oh, nice.
And
awesome.
Yeah, and it largely follows it takes the Sadie arc from Worlds of War and shows her kind of on this pilgrimage to Smallville. And all the War World stuff wasn't quite the right fit for this gig. For these so instead we used just a lot of just still images of Superman, like her dreams of Superman, her visions of him. And the Tedesco covers just sum that up so well. So we used all the Tedesco covers as kind of as like just these as kind of the representation of the Superman myth,
Yeah. So his work always looks very classic, like the way he draws the suit and stuff. It seems like Golden Age rather than the Superman we see now, which is quite nice.
Yeah, it's kind of this classic Golden Age, just timeless kind of look.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like Norman Rockwell is what it reminds me of, which is not.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, timeless might actually not be the right word. More like frozen in time, kind of like a time capsule kind of approach.
Yeah. Do you have much sort of input in terms of what's going on the cover, or do you just give complete freedom to the artist?
Not really. Usually, the editors have so much going on. It doesn't usually come up between them and me. But I did have some ideas for the Warworld stuff. I really wanted the covers to be very Frazetta-esque.
Yeah.
I wanted to see every cover to be this, like Frazetta painting, but with Superman mythology characters. And that didn't quite work out as I anticipated, as I originally wanted it to. But now it is kind of starting to manifest as the Ricardo covers that are coming. So there's a variant cover for the January issue that is very much like his variants from Worlds of War. That shows the new John Carter of Mars kind of alternate costume. Yeah. And there's another one that's going to be like that for the following issue as well, for the February issue. Let's see what else. There's other ones coming up. Up until then, I was like, what happened to my Frazetta stuff? And it just kind of got a lot. There's been a lot of editorial shakeup at DC. Like a lot of people left. And so actually that just happened again. There's another editor coming on board. So some of that stuff just kind of got lost in the cracks. And the first ones, when Tedesco started doing the variants for that, his first one, his on ramp into the fantasy covers was that one that Evan, you just pointed out, the astronaut on the moon thing, or in space rather.
Yeah.
And then the one after that he does is the Warlord of Mars cover where he's got the sword and everything.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, the variant covers are something else, and even the standard covers are amazing as well. And just to sort of note to everyone listening, we are going to be talking about a lot of spoilers in this episode. So if you haven't read the issue before, then please
read the book first before you listen to us.
Yeah, read it first. It's a really good one to sort of get a first reaction to while you're reading it, rather than having somebody spoil it for you. So before we get into the issue, I just want to talk about the artwork a little bit, because the artwork in this one is by Miguel Mendonca and Adriano Lucas, and it's amazing. Like you say, Daniel really set the standard for the way Superman looks, and I think he's added his own touch to that, but still used the same sort of classic design, which is quite cool.
Yeah, agreed. One of the reasons we went with Miguel is because his approach to Superman is definitely not. It's not overly similar to Daniel's, but it's much more like Daniel's and other people we had in mind. I like there are a lot of similarities between their styles, and it seemed like a less jarring transition from Daniel to Miguel. And he's only on the issue for a couple of issues. He's on the book for a couple of issues. He's doing the one you just read, and then the next one.
Okay.
But yeah, Miguel seemed like a great choice. He's just such a nice guy and great collaborator. He just welcomes all notes and feedback on everything as things are rolling in, and he just really wants to meet his collaborators halfway, and it's really a joy to work with him.
Yeah, so I follow him on social media, and he seems really excited about all of this. So it's quite nice to see how excited he is about it. He was so excited to draw Superman, and I had to tell him, I was like, your issue is the one in which he loses. Oh yeah. Oh no.
And he was like, oh man. I was like, I'm sorry, dude. That's how it is. But there are still some cool moments, and the next we'll see some cool stuff in the next one too. But yeah, it's a rough one. Honestly, both issues are kind of rough.
Yeah.
So sorry for how that shook out. But he took it like a champ. And I did ask him, like, what kind of images do you want to draw? I always talk to my artists when I can about what they want to draw, what gets them excited, you know. And he's like, I want to see Superman moving really, really fast, like in a way that we don't always see in a comic. I want to see him using his super speed and as a kind of weaponize his super speed in a way we don't always see.
Yeah.
Like, cool, I can do that. And some of that was done with Superman, like just in still images, but other ones are other characters as well. And I really do love how Miguel draws movement. You know, like everything is so dynamic. Like when you see Light Ray do her stuff and things that are coming as well. Like there's just a lot of. He uses speed lines and blur and poses and everything in a super cohesive way that makes it look very, very fast and dynamic.
Cool.
What was the transition period like between sort of him, Daniel, and I think I've I listened to the interview you did with the Last Sons of Krypton, and you mentioned that Ricardo Fedoriki is coming on board soon.
Yes, yeah. Ricardo starts in January, and
okay.
he's the new ongoing artist. So, and it's seeing his interiors roll in is just insane, man. Because I mean, it's those covers that we've all seen. Every page looks that good. It's nuts. It's like he doesn't take. It's not like he's putting his A game onto the covers and then everything else is kind of phoning it in. Everything looks that good. It's insane what he can do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, you guys are in for a huge treat. And the stuff, and I don't have to ask. Some artists like a ton of direction, and they like you to describe every little thing in the page. And anything you don't describe doesn't make it in. But Ricardo he adds so much atmosphere to everything. In a way, it's better to just let him run wild and then just write the things that he draws into the story and find a way to incorporate those into what's happening on the page.
I've never seen
he's going to be. We are doing a fill-in issue after a couple of months. So let's see, Ricardo's on it for a couple of months, and then we have one fill-in issue, I think, that we're going to use. We're writing to the schedule, so the fact that we need a fill-in issue, I was like, sweet. That means we could do like a flashback type thing, like go and show some other person, because that's something I wanted to show anyway. So we'll use that for that issue, and then Ricardo comes back on for 6 months or whatever.
Oh, okay.
So it's going to be, oh my God, I can't. I'll shut up. But it's gonna blow your minds what he's doing. Yeah. This is the coolest a Superman book's ever looked.
His variant covers for it was Worlds of War, wasn't he? Did the variants for, and they were amazing. So I can't even imagine how it's going to look on interior work. I don't know if he's done a lot of interior work before, but I've never seen his interior work. So it's going to be amazing.
If you want to see what he's capable of, I have a 12-issue epic fantasy horror book called The Last God from DC Black Label.
Okay.
I highly recommend you read it, even if you don't read a single word of what I wrote. His work is just the best a comic can look. It's unbelievable what he can do.
Yeah.
For an example, there's a scene coming up in his January issue in which to kind of add to the atmosphere and everything, we talk about scavengers sometimes in the book, and they're kind of looked down upon because there's this gigantic. It's a planet, right? Like not, Mongol and his blood priests don't have a handle on where every single person is at all times. So there are these people who presumably at some point escaped and are just kind of wandering, trying to survive on Warworld with no way to get home.
Okay.
And I wanted to see some of those guys. So I asked him to draw a couple of alien companions, like an alien couple, basically, with this little humanoid child that they had some point kind of adopted, kind of grabs, let's get him out of here. So we see these two aliens and one that's and then one little kid with 2 arms and 2 legs. And he drew them. And when I saw them, they just looked so incredible. You could just see, you can almost imagine their whole story of how they got there.
Yeah.
Cool. In fact, Ricardo might have even posted that. While we're talking here, I'm going to look that up and see if I can find that image for you.
Okay. I'm trying to work my way back through my notes now because we went off on such a tangent.
Yeah, sorry, I went off on a tangent.
No, it's good. It's fine. So when we first see the issue, we start on Warworld just as Superman and the Authority arrive, and that panel is just amazing. They look like a really confident team, and especially considering the scale of this mission, I think they kind of underestimated what they were going into in some senses. And we then cut to the United Planets conference, where they all seem to be on the side of helping Superman, and then it's Tharos, or is it Lord Premier Tharos? Sorry, he chimes in and kind of puts them off. So we saw this character before, and I think it was the previous issue or the issue before that, and his personality just switched as soon as he heard the term Philosians. So is there anything you can tell us about him? Because I'm assuming he's quite a bit of a shady character.
He is a shady character. I wanted to show this kind old grandfatherly character that seemed very, like a Yoda or something, like a very kind old guy that we thought was going to be this great ally to us, or I don't know, it's kind of a feel good character. And then suddenly we see there's this huge secret. And when they realize they might be discovered, I'm thinking of specific politicians in mind, like people who try to have this image, and then we find out later there's this shady thing that they thought was was hidden forever, and that's the Philosians are somehow tied into that. So even though Mongol is clearly a villain, he's not the only villain. And I wanted to show there are others coming as well, and that's going to shape. And there are a couple of seeds that need to get planted for stuff to make sense later about where it goes.
Yeah.
It's Warworld. The story that we have on Warworld of Superman saving the slaves is the primary story happening now, but it's not the only story, and it will lead to other things later. And Lord Premier Theros is a very ambitious character who saw the development of the UP as a huge boon to him personally, like a way for his extreme ambitions to be realized even greater than they had been up to that point.
Okay.
And we're going to see how the Philosians tie into that, and how it was in his best interest for Superman to not leave Warworld ever. So yeah, even though technically they're allies, because as the leader of the UP, he and Superman should be natural allies, you would think, but it's in his best interest that Superman never escaped that place. Okay. And we'll see why that is.
Yeah.
Now, I had a question about that character. He looks very similar to the president from the Legion of Superheroes. Are they the same race? Is that a Durlan? Is that correct?
They're the same race. Yes, they are Durlans. And there's, in my mind, there are different, not different species, but different civilizations of Durlans on that planet. Because we've seen very different versions of Durlans in the past, right? Over the old stuff, there was a Durlan in Legion that looked very, very different, like different color and had a little antenna. And but we've established that Durlans can also look like I forget the president's name. It had always been a male back in the day, and then they kind of swapped the character out and made it a female in Legion. I wanted something to kind of establish that as like legit, and show that they're of the same race. So yeah. That character was part of the reference that I sent to design Lord Premier Theros.
Okay, so is that like a political dynasty that lasts 1,000 years? Since they're both the same race and they're same position in the.
Maybe I didn't put. No, I have different plans for this guy, but but I haven't already established everything like the rest of his life after this arc. But in my mind, it goes differently for him after this. But we'll see.
Okay.
Well,
things do sometimes change. The thing about writing comics for Big Two is that you're not writing in a vacuum. Like the stuff that you write intersects with a lot of other writers' work as well at the same time, and somebody else might need that character. They might need somebody of a very similar stature to assassinate or to use in some other, in some other way. So it's hard to say. Even I do not have control of what happens to that character, even though I invented him.
Nice.
So we'll see what happens with him.
Well, I won't ask you any more about that because I'm guessing there's a lot of spoilers involved if that's the case. So in the issue, we cut back to Warworld and Superman and his team take on Mongol and his champions. And we kind of really get to see how confident this Mongol is in himself. And he knows that he's got the advantage over Superman. And it seems like Superman's almost underestimating him a little bit as well, because he's assuming that he's very much like the previous Mongol who he actually killed. So he kind of... he proves himself to Superman, I guess, in this part. And the action sequences here are fantastic. It's so detailed, you can feel every hit. And this is the moment we get to see what Mongol's champions are really capable of. And there's a vast array of different powers that they've got and stuff that they use, which is great. The female one, is her name Mother? Yeah, they call her Mother. Yeah, I look forward to showing her backstory. But yeah, they she's not literally any of their mothers, but that's what they call her because of the circumstances in which they found her and her backstory. So that's what the blood priests call her as Mother.
And so I had a question about these guys too. Are they they seem to all have specific superpowers as well. So it's kind of like Mongol's own sort of Justice League or Authority team. Is that kind of the inspiration for Mongol's champions was actually Bane. When he first showed up, he had this crew with him that all had a very specific role in his upbringing and his escape and all that. I like that. I like they had a crew that wasn't just
I need a bunch of tough guys. Like they have their origins wrapped up in his own. And I really wanted the backstories in that. You know how each issue has a backup story, and right now it's Martian Manhunter. I really wanted the backup. I thought that the backups were going to be origins for Mongol and his champions. That's what I intended. Okay. And then there was this weird shakeup, and it didn't end up. They ended up needing to put the Martian Manhunter story in there too. So they did that. But we're going to explore some of that in that fill-in issue that I talked about now.
Oh, cool.
So we'll still see a lot of the origin stuff. But yeah, we don't really know much about the old Mongols, right? Like the Mongol classic. We don't know much about how he became who he is and his backstory. And that was kind of bugged me. I want to know who he is, like what his motivations are besides like, haha, I'm evil and I want to rule everything. And I always want to see more than that. And now we're going to. And we're going to see where this guy came from, how a child is raised on Warworld, how a person comes of age there, what it means to be a son of Mongol, knowing that the children tend to rise up and kill their fathers. How does that affect their upbringing? How does Mongol treat those kids? Or how are they treated by Warworld itself? How does Chadel play in all this? Because Chadel, we've established that Chadel is the tip-top bad motherfucker that ever lived on Warworld. And I want to see more of that. And the Unmade has a big part to play in all that too. The person that the Unmade used to be when he was alive. Okay. So man, I can't wait to show all that shit. I'm sure there will be some stuff that we just can't put on the page because there's just so much. But I'm going to show every bit of it that I can. And so that when we see every time I show one of those scenes, I want it to make those characters cooler and more, just more enriched. Like when we see Mongol, I want people to care about him, kind of. I want people to see how he became what he is. I mean, I'm sure we all know people that if we had known, people in our lives and our families or friends, that if we didn't know how they became who they are, we would probably look down on them or just kind of not be impressed with them in general, because we know so much of their upbringing and how they, the dreams that came to fruition or didn't, or the ways in which they were disappointed or disappointed others, the things they struggled with, the things that the pain they've gone through. Seeing their lives play out, we have a lot more affection for people than we do if we, when we see them through the lens of ignorance, And I really want to see the new Mongol with as much detail as possible and show them in a more sympathetic light. He's still a monster, but why is he a monster? How did he become who he is? So I want to show as much of that as we have time to show. Cool.
Is it just that one issue, the villain issue, where we're going to get to explore these characters?
No, that's the one that shows the most. But we're going to be getting there's stuff hidden throughout the issues as well, where we see little conversations play out. Or no, I'm trying to see as much as I can of the champions throughout the issues too. But that one, the fill in is because of the otherwise jarring art shift. I personally don't like it when artists are swapped out in the middle of a story, unless there's a reason for it. Like an example of that would be the Batman Superman of the Authority story that we just did, and where we wrote to the contrast.
Right.
Found out that
we did talk about that in one of the previous issues where it was different worlds, it was different multiverses, wasn't it? So we had a different artist for each one.
There was a dark multiverse chapter, and that was driven by need, because I found out that that Trevor was not going to be able to do the whole issue, and we was like, okay, Trevor can only do 20 pages, and we started weighing the options for an alternate artist, and someone threw the name Ben Templesmith, and I love Templesmith's work. But I was like, are you crazy? Like, that looks nothing like Trevor at all. Like, I could not imagine a more different.
Yeah, they're very different
art choice. But then we were both kind of like, wait. What if we just wrote? We made it a feature, not a bug, and really wrote to the contrast. Because I just like balled up I threw away the idea that I was doing for the issue, and I was like, what if we do this other thing where there's two, like literally we're seeing something play out in two different worlds, and in a way that makes sense. Like they go through, and even they look different on the other side. That would be really rad. I haven't seen that much. And so we just played that up. So we're doing a similar thing here where there's a jarring art style, but it's not jarring because we're seeing a completely different perspective. We're seeing other characters that I personally wish we had seen more of up until this point and haven't been able to because of space. And now we're going to show their perspective. So the art is not jarring, but it makes it feel more real because we're seeing things through another character's eyes.
Yeah.
Cool. We have before we move on, we have a couple of comments.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this is from a regular contributor, David Beasley. And David says, sounds like those backstories would make a great annual companion. I agree.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I hope so. There's going to be an annual coming this year too, and I'm trying to decide what to do with that. Yeah, I would love to. I mean, last time we were able to do a House of L thing, and I do have plans for House of L as well. But because of everything happening right now in Warworld, this time it'll probably be more of a companion piece like you're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Hello to France.
Long live Superman. Well, he obviously hasn't read the issue.
We have another comment from Emmanuel Cruz Carrasco, and he says, Phillip Kennedy Johnson, have you read Superman Exile?
I have, and it's terrific. I mean, it's great. This is a very different kind of story that we're doing. Exiles, I mean, it's a timeless story, and sometimes you read an old book and it's like, damn, this is dated. And like it kind of doesn't hold up. And I did not feel that way about Exile. I like Exile. Yeah. I went back I remember reading it a long time ago, and I went back and read it recently. I was like, this holds up pretty well. I like this. It is not. I tried not to cling to it too closely when I was working on this story because Superman's been around so long. Everything's been done. Yeah. You know, like I didn't want to shy away from Warworld because there was a Warworld story once back in the 80s or whatever. It's not enough of a reason to not do a thing. But we're doing it so completely differently. And I mean, DC is being so great about giving me like miles of runway to do this huge story in a way that Exile was a little more contained. Yeah. And so this is a long story that we're telling, and it also is going to impact the ongoing monthly for a long time going forward.
Okay.
There's going to be characters that we see, that we meet, and hopefully get to love in the Warworld saga that pay dividends throughout Action Comics for the foreseeable future. So it's the big difference between Exile and this is just the massive scale they're letting us get away with on the story in a way that Exile was not given the same. Like you see Superman, it's got the belt and the headband and the beard and all that kind of the Rocky IV imagery. Yeah. And then it was and then it's over, right? This is not going to be the same kind of microcosm. This is going to be something that really impacts the continuity for a while. Yeah. But I did admire Exile. Well, there is a character that you're going to meet in the next issue, a gladiator, an alien gladiator. I was tempted to shoot. Do you guys remember the name of? There's a character. Yes, that's it. Like where he was like the champion on Warworld. Is like have Superman fight Trega, right? I was tempted to give this guy that name because visually there are similarities, but I didn't want people to think that this is like an Exile reboot because it's not. Yeah. It's a completely different story. This is a different Mongol that is on Warworld now. This is actually technically a different Warworld, as we established on there that the Mongols and the Warzoons have built like imitation Warworlds over the years, but that this one is the true one. So it would have felt a little bit fakey to throw in the name just because it's a cool story. Yeah. So this is that character's named Kaljo now, not Drega. It just because when people ask me about certain stories happen in continuity, like I feel even though I understand there's differences in tone and stuff. Somebody asked me recently if I thought the man who has everything is continuity, if it's canon or whatever, and I have to say yes. But it is a little bit weird to imagine Superman and Batman, given the way things are now, showing up to the fortress like "Happy birthday." It's just such a different kind of story that we wouldn't do now. That's Jason Todd, is that Robin? Now of course he's the Red Hood and everything's all crazy. So but in my heart of hearts, it still feels like canon to me. And technically, I guess Exile would too. So I didn't want to just pretend like, give a little wink to the audience, like, oh, it didn't count. This is actually Dragon now. But so anyway, it was in my mind, but I'm consciously trying not to redo any of those beats or be too similar to that story, because what we're doing is completely different. The story is all about human trafficking and refugees. The concept of refugees and like how, what Superman would do in the face of a refugee crisis, and like real world things. It's like there are real themes underneath all the comic booky genre stuff that really matters to me here. It's not just what if we did this cool thing. So so Exile is not a huge inspiration for the story, beside the obvious on its surface level trappings.
Yeah. Well, you already threw me for a loop because I was expecting a little something like Exile when they're going to Warworld, and because in Exile it takes like 6 months worth of comics for him to actually get where he's going.
Right.
So I was expecting like a long voyage, but then the next issue, we're there. So that was great.
Yeah, well, there'd already been so much build up on Earth. I didn't want to, it felt like a dick move to take another 6 months to get there. So yeah, instead, thought we'd get right to it.
Yeah. Well, in this moment, I sort of love how all of the team members know exactly what they need to do, and they know exactly who they need to take on as well. So you've got, is it the Enchantress goes for Mother, Apollo goes for the Unmade, and Leah goes for Darling. Well, she doesn't think she's going for Darling, but she actually is.
Yeah.
And it's here that it kind of we really get a taste of what Mongols champions are capable of, and it takes a bit of a somber turn. So this issue definitely has the shock factor. That's safe to say. And some of the fates of the characters, particularly Apollo, which was the one that shook me the most in this part. What sort of made you choose those characters to have that fate, if that makes sense?
Well, oh man, some of that's spoilery, so I shouldn't say certain things.
Okay.
So you guys read Superman and the Authority, so that at the end it reveals that light ray is very important, but we don't know why yet or how. And so yeah, taking light ray off the board felt like an important move, in a way that it would almost feels like we're seeing this this version of events that shouldn't have happened. Like but it's not supposed to go like this, for light ray to die. Because light ray's dead. It's not a fake out.
Yeah.
As far as Apollo is kind of this trump card that you can just kind of play because he's so powerful.
Yeah.
It also is kind of a statement for him to be not dead. We didn't really see him die exactly, but he's not of use at the moment. Yeah. So that was also kind of a statement of how powerful these guys are, of what the Unmade is capable of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, those are the big ones,
don't
right?
worry if it's too difficult to split the spoilers.
Yeah, I'm trying not to spoil anything, but also we established these relationships. I mean, Apollo and Midnighter obviously are married, and I want to see Midnighter in that place, and kind of the same thing for OMAC. Like OMAC is Light Ray's protector, and is clearly deeply is deeply devoted rather to Light Ray, and I wanted to see OMAC taken to a place we haven't really seen. This new OMAC really interests me, and I wanted to see him taken to a very uncomfortable, dark place, and we're going to see that.
Okay.
So, kind of busting up the relationships that we've established in this book so far, or that we've established in the Authority, is a way to kind of show what everyone's made of, and plus to kind of take their hope away. This was the big breaking point moment for the team where we see them just definitively lose.
Yeah.
And taking away, like breaking up all the lovey couples kind of felt like a part of, one way to do that. It just felt like the organic way to go.
Yeah.
It wasn't super like plotted out. It felt like the way to go. So we'll see. And June too, the Enchantress. So we'll see how that all plays out. We'll see. We're gonna see these windows into the champions through them.
Okay.
And we're also gonna see this. We did see Manchester Black get his win in.
Yeah.
Yeah. MVP.
And he mauled Teacher pretty bad.
Yeah.
And
that's pretty brutal.
We're gonna see that grudge that Teacher holds and how that plays out. Teacher's real mad about that, and so he Manchester Black is kind of under Teacher's purview now, and we'll see that relationship play out.
Yeah. Well, that was going to be the next part I talked about, because I don't normally like Manchester Black, and we've talked about this in previous episodes, because as a Brit, sometimes he comes across as very stereotypical, where he's like, "Oh, blimey," and all stuff like that.
Right.
I really like, yeah. I really like this version. Well, Ewan Grant's version of him, because I don't know, just the dialogue feels a lot more authentic, and that's probably because Grant's a Brit as well, or Scottish. So it just seems a bit more authentic, and the changeover between because obviously the Authority and then in Action Comics, two different writers, it seemed very seamless between the changeover.
Well, thanks. I'm glad. Yeah, I put a lot of thought into that. I really don't want to come across as a faker with someone's dialogue, like like Chris Claremont, Rogue, and Banshee stuff. I just don't want to. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just very mindful of it. At one point, I went back and read. I wrote. There was a word of dialogue where Manchester Black went in it, like INNIT, and I was like, I'm trying too hard. And I went back and I scrubbed that out. And even though I know, I feel like I don't want to try to spell out their dialect. I let them put that in there on their own.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to overdo it.
Yeah. If you do use that term in it, well, I don't know about you, Ashley, but I tend to say "en it," so it's ENNIT. That's how I would say it.
Oh, interesting. Okay, good.
Maybe that's because I'm from the Midlands, but if you want to use that, then feel free.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I see it used all the time, and it very often fits just fine.
Yeah.
I, as a foreigner, I did not feel like I had permission, so I'm trying to do the dialect with the word choices and not actual spelling the words out weird.
Yeah.
Now, did you guys have a discussion about Manchester Black's power levels? Because I think when he first showed up, he was like super, super powerful. And
he was, and he is. Yeah. I know we haven't seen that really come to the fore yet, but we're gonna see him do what he can do. Cool. I think he's a really cool character, and I love how punk rock he is. I love how he's just that anti-establishment dude. I don't know. It's a joy to write him. I love writing him. And I also love that he's so powerful too, because I mean you see some of that in Constantine, but he's basically a con man that never tries too hard. He's not doing the Doctor Strange big circles of power kind of stuff. He'd rather just smoke and trick people into ruining themselves rather than actually showing this big display of crazy power. And he doesn't really do that. But it'd be fun to see Manchester Black go over the top. Well, I mean, just like Grant wrote him in that book. I thought Grant did a really awesome job with Manchester Black and Superman of the Authority. So I definitely want to show some of that coming up.
Yeah. So at this point, we then see Superman take on Mongol, and it's here that Mongol's plan really comes to sort of fruition, because he literally explains to Superman what he's done within his plan to sort of take him down. So he's obviously got the Red Sun, so he's weakened. He obviously plays on the fact that he's got a team and he's very compassionate about his team. But to me, this makes that Mongol feel that all the more terrifying, because even though he's taken on one of the most powerful beings, even though he is weakened, he's still explaining what his plan is. So it doesn't seem like he's entirely focused on that fight, and he just wants Superman to know what he's done in order to make him feel that way.
Yeah, he's beating his chest, right? He's so confident. Yeah. He's so. I mean, the more you dissect what Warworld is and think about deeply like what it is, this place that goes around conquering worlds and killing everyone and enslaving the remnants, and the whole place is just built around the concept of dominance. I think we might discuss that on this show actually at some point. Like water scarcity to the Fremen of Dune is as dominance is to the Warzoons of Warworld, and it's just this central aspect of everything that they do and know. And what would a person, if somebody were to conquer that entire planet in a way that Genghis Khan and Alexander the Great were not able to do here, like what would that kind of person be like? And there's just imagine the confidence, like the arrogance, the sheer strength. He's just not afraid of shit. And I love, and he's not just strength. Like he says that was his father's weakness. Like he respected only strength. Yeah. And this guy's clever too. He also puts that Batman level preparation into the fight before it actually happens. And definitely. So to the extent that he actually tore down all the furnaces of Warworld before they would conquer a planet, just rape all the natural resources, you just basically burn that planet in their furnaces, and that's how they kind of get around. They burn all the bodies, they burn all the resources, they just destroy everything. It's just a giant smokestack. And he tore all that down and built the Star Forces where they synthesize red suns, and he did that in part for this moment, just preparing for this fight. Just think of the ridiculous expense just the cost of time and bodies and energy to do something like that. And it's part of it is all just to put Superman where he shouldn't be, and take him down. So it just shows the level to which he's willing to go to win.
Yeah, definitely. And the moment where Superman sees, well, I'm assuming he's seeing all of the events that have happened, so Apollo, June as well, but the moment where he goes to Light Ray, where she's sort of in her last moments, that was quite hard to see, I think, and because obviously Leah was so young, and like you said, she was built up to be this really important character, which I'm sure she still is, but we weren't expecting her to go down, and I'm assuming neither was he, and it just shows that Mongol really kicked him when he was down in that moment. And also, I actually forgot while I was reading this that in this moment, they're actually essentially a show, because it's this moment where you see all the chanting for Mongol, and it's like a mini gladiator show, isn't it? So there are crowds watching them as they're going through all of this.
Yeah, there's definitely a theatrical aspect to this whole thing. I mean, another part of Mongol's power is the cult of personality that he's built on Warworld, the propaganda machine, and the fact that he's got all these people literally in chains who are proud of their chain. Their chain is this thing that they've cultivated, and they love it. They are proud of it, and that's all because of him and this thing that he's built there, like the misinformation campaign that he's built for however long. So yeah, a lot of it is that showing that, kind of undoing the white savior trope by showing they don't want his help. They don't know, they don't think that they are slaves. They see themselves as being a part of this great thing. They don't realize what he's done to them.
Yeah.
One thing I really liked, well, a couple of things I really liked in the last issue, I think, 1036, where Superman is talking to all of the people in the arena, and he's like, I know that my words don't mean anything to you, but I'm going to say them anyway, because they need to be said. And I really like that. And I think that's kind of like the same, to me, that's the same thing he's doing here with giving Leah her goodbye, because, I mean, it's absolutely not the atmosphere for a conversation like that, but it doesn't matter because it needs to be said, So I thought that was great.
Yeah. Thanks. I appreciate that. I don't remember, it's been a while since I've been on. I can't remember if I talked about this, but I talked about my anti-human trafficking work last time I was here.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
I did a lot of anti-human trafficking work in Baltimore, and there was a moment. Fighting human trafficking is super duper hard, and part of it is because of the reasons that we're exploring now in this book, the fact that they don't want our help. That it's not. I mean, if you envision, kicking in the door and finding this place with these people who need help, and they're like, "Oh my God, thank God you've come. Now we're okay." And it just doesn't happen that way. Not to say that it never does. I mean, there are some cartoonishly horrible moments in which there are people who are literally being like chained in basements and stuff, but primarily it's more like they're most often being held through, misinformation and just grooming, like years of grooming. And there was a woman one time, and very often they've been treated with nothing but disrespect and harshness and disdain and abuse for so long that that's all they know, that they're just made of that, So when you try to help them, they abuse you, they hate you, they don't want you around.
Yeah.
And at some point, I was talking to a woman who had been rescued, and she said, what'd she say? If the police had kicked down the door in the middle of the night, put a gun to my trafficker's head, and asked me, "Are you being trafficked?" I would have said no. And I just remember thinking, I kind of I had this throw up my hands moment, like, what the fuck are we doing this for? Like, how are we supposed to do anything? Like, it seems so hopeless. And that's something I really wanted to show here. Like the invisible chains that they wear, that they cultivate. They don't think that they have pimps. They think they have a boyfriend, who cares about them. They think that they love them. And if somebody were to try to take that chain away, they'll fight tooth and nail to protect it. That's something that really exists, and I wanted to see that in this book, and tell a story that really matters, dressed up in a way that is exciting, and see Superman in the context of a human trafficking story, basically, without actually making it, drown yourself depressing, and just try to show you a story that matters, and see how Superman approaches that kind of a thing. And we'll see that in the very next issue too. Actually, we're gonna see that conversation play out between Superman and another character. Like, we've lost. Like, what do you think? Do you think we won this? Like, when this person sees Superman not giving up, and they're like, "What is wrong with you? Like, you've never had your ass kicked like this, not like this."
Yeah.
They don't even want you here. And we'll see how Superman reacts to a story like that.
Yeah. See, this is why I like getting the writers on and talking about things like this, because not everyone will, when they read it, not everyone will notice that necessarily, or realize that that's come from a very real place and from what you've experienced. So it's definitely interesting to hear that, and it's nice to see that something so, even though it's not necessarily exactly the same story, even though it's got the themes, it's nice to know that that's what's sort of pushing this story forward.
Yeah, thanks. It matters to me a whole lot.
Yeah.
If I were to find out that, because it's comics, it's corporate comics, and there's a lot of different pieces moving at the same time, and I had my greatest fear is that I would get shut down, because like, we can't really take 15 years for the story. Like, it's not actually going to go for 15 years. But but if they were to say, "We need you to wrap this up 5 issues sooner so we can line it up with this other thing," or whatever, I would be on a plane to DC to talk to, like, please allow me to pitch you why this can't get cut short. Like, this is a story that really deeply matters to me, and I think I have to believe in my heart of hearts that it will matter for a long time. I want this to be like a tome on the shelf that exists, that tells a story that really matters. I hope that will last a long time, and I really hope they let me finish the story. Then they're going to. They've been great. Like, they've been very supportive, and they love what we're doing. And I mean, the fact that they put Ricardo in the book speaks volumes, because I mean, he's their secret weapon. I mean, he's so unbelievably good. Yeah. I just cannot wait for people to say, when you get a chance, check out Ricardo's Instagram. He shows a lot of process stuff. I looked it up just now, and the image I was thinking of that he just drew is not of the scavenger family. It's of a blood priest in a ritual, but it's just, you can't believe it's just pencil on paper. I mean, like, how is this not a real thing? It looks so incredible. So I encourage you all to follow Ricardo on Instagram and see the miracles he's working on this book. Yeah,
we will. I can't wait to see the interior work for this. I know we've already talked about it in this episode, but yeah, I love his work. I've never seen an interior art, so I'm definitely going to look at that. The Last Gods.
It's so incredible. Yeah. I'm going to say it's even better than the covers, because it's not, the covers are just like just kind of a summary image. It's just like, boom, Superman, or Superman fighting, but it's not, you're not seeing the little stuff in the background, like the scavenger family, or the writing in the background on the walls, or the different like all the mechanics that make the body, like the big body mechanics of the aliens. You can see this thing would actually exist and like function in an actual environment. We're talking and thinking about things like how dense the gravity is in this place, and like how how's the skeleton work. And sometimes when he sends me a sketch of a new alien, he'll send me a picture of the skeleton as well to show like how things work. Like, yep, that looks good. Or like, hey, what if we do it more like this? It's like, I'm going to look back on this time. One day I'll be old and washed up, and I'll look back on this time as the most rewarding time in my life creatively. I just can't believe what I'm able to do with this guy. I just love working on, and the same for Daniel and Miguel. Like, I've been so blessed with the artists. Yeah. And I'm just as a Superman fan, I'm so glad that my fellow fans are getting these people in the books that care so deeply about what they're doing, because you can see it on the page.
Yeah. We had Daniel on the show, I think it was maybe a month or two ago now, and he taught us how to draw the perfect Superman. So that was quite cool. So maybe
I loved it.
To do the same.
Yeah, it's cool. I love that he looks like you can believe it's the same Superman from the Kurt Swan days, or Siegel and Schuster or Byrne or Frank Whiteley. Like, you can see all of those versions in this classic kind of, this character that kind of epitomizes all of that. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Before we move on, I had a question. Talking about, you're working out all the details, like the density of the planet and whatnot. So obviously this is a different looking world. Like, I've seen worlds where there's no, topography or natural landscape. It's all just machines. So what, in your mind, what is the makeup of the planet?
Oh man, I wish I could tell you that. I can't. We get into that hardcore in the January issue.
Okay, then we can wait.
And we see that everything you thought you knew about Warworld's a huge lie, and we'll see how we know that. But basically, I will say I can tell you a little bit though. So because we saw some of that in the annual that we did last year, or this year, I guess. Yeah. There was as far as where the slaves live, when we're not talking about like the dungeons, but like the people that live on the surface. I had in my mind kind of like the favelas that you see in Rio, where it's like all these little like containers or huts or whatever that kind of are stacked upon each other, just like all the way up this mountainside, just for miles and miles and miles. Just these dense little piles of tiny residences. And I am thinking this is an artificial world, right? It is. So in theory, it is all metal. I can't get into that any deeper than that. I really want you to see in January what I mean by that, like how it's all metal, whether that's really true. But what we see on the surface is all metal. I figured, I was like, okay, well, where do all these things come from? Where's all the material coming from? Because it's not like there's any, iron mines on Warworld, or are there? And I was like, well, what if all of the metal that we see is actually bits and pieces of salvaged warships and cultures of places that they've conquered, and when they're taking all the resources, like while they're burning the fossil fuels, they also take all the useful metal with them, and they use that to make stuff on Warworld. So this place has actually been growing outwards for thousands of years. So but there's an atmosphere there, right? I mean, people are breathing and talking, so there must be oxygen there, or some kind of gas that they can breathe. So presumably there would also be electrical storms and rain and stuff like that. So the entire planet is red because it's rusted all to hell over the course of centuries, So because of that, you can tell how old the structure is by how rusty it is. So like the bottom layer of a 24 layer structure of houses is basically just becoming rusty mud. It's like just settling into the ground. Like the soil is actually just basically iron oxide, like just mud.
Yeah, that was my question, because I've never seen so much dirt on Warworld, but that makes a lot of sense. That's great.
Yeah, it's literally like rust and muddy water and feces and every gross thing. Like it's just become this slop, this sludge that has grown up over time. There are these, they call everyone grubs down there, because there are these worms that live in the ground, the blind worms that just kind of wait for somebody to fall or to bleed or whatever. And they just kind of feed on us. It's like these little parasitic worms that live in the rusty ground, and they're like the most reviled, looked down upon thing. And they believe that the Warzoons don't believe that all the people they bring from other worlds will ever see the Orchard of the Dead, their afterlife. They think that they are reborn as the grubs in the ground on Warworld. Like once Warworld takes them to Warworld, then they're stuck there for eternity, and they're reborn as literal worms that just suck the wounds of the dying.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's why they call us grubs.
Because you wrote that somehow they believe that once they've been taken from their world, their gods can't hear them anymore, and so now they're stuck in the worm purgatory.
Yeah,
or whatever.
It's too far for their gods to hear. So now they're stuck there with them. They become these worms that pick their wounds. So yeah, pretty gross. No, thanks. So yeah. Anyway, sorry. You asked about where did we get started with that question? Oh, like the
makeup. I mean, you answered my question. My main question was, where is all the dirt coming from? And so
there it is. Great. Yeah, and there's also, oh god, no, I can't say that part. There's a really cool reason that there is an atmosphere there that I'm pretty excited about that you'll see at some point. Like, how is anyone able to breathe here? And you'll see why that is.
Yeah.
Because it's not just, there aren't any pretty green trees taking carbon dioxide to make oxygen, right? So there's something way more fucked up.
Oh god. That's in January. We'll find that out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not too long to wait, I guess. And again, we went on a massive tangent there, but going back to the issue itself, and this is the part where it's kind of the icing on the cake for Mongol's plan, and he pretty much strikes Superman with a kryptonite spear and literally hoists him into the air with it, which is brutal. And as a Superman fan, it's hard to see, but it just makes we just know the stakes are real in that situation. So the imagery here is great as well, because you obviously got the green glow of the kryptonite, the pain in Superman's face, but also the panel where he's being hoisted up and he's literally all in shadow, and you can just see the emblem and then the blood pouring down. That bit was just iconic, and it really reminded me. It felt like a nod to the Death and Return of Superman logo. I don't know if that is the case, but that's what it reminded me of. Yeah,
it is.
And I'm going to say this right now. This story arc has the same impact that story arc had on me, because that's one of the classic Superman stories, and I think this is going to be as top tier as that. And I think, like you said, he wants to go down as not just writing a Superman story, but writing one that sort of stayed with time and matters. I think this is one.
Oh man, thanks so much for saying that. I love that.
It's true.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, I was kind of terrified of, because there's all the trolls online who are like, they're gonna kill Superman forever and replace it with John because copyright bullshit or whatever, and it's like none of that's true, and it's kind of annoying, like because the people who are saying this stuff are older writers, and they should know that death in the comic doesn't last, and it's all just the illusion of change, and he's not even dead. But I knew that I know that people were gonna see that final image and be like, "See, we told you so." It's all like I was right the whole time, and I was like, "God, I could just hear them say it already."
Yeah,
and it's not the case. But I was like, "Well, I'm gonna try not to think about that and just do what's best for the story," because we did need to see Superman lose before we see the things that are coming next.
Yeah.
So if he just kind of got punched in the face and he's sitting on the ground with his frowny face, it's not. And we needed to see him like really lose in a way that he's not able to get back up again. At least
more impact. Yeah. Well, we get preview access to the comics each week, so we can get the reviews in on time. And for me, Action Comics is always the first one that I read if it's on the list. I'm just need to know what happens next.
I'm glad. Have you read? Does that mean you've read 1038?
No, I haven't yet. I've tried to. Okay. I wanted to wait before I did the interview with you in case
I heard it just went up. I know the end of the issue is not coming out for a couple of weeks, but I heard that the issue just went up. So enjoy.
Yeah, I read a third of it so far. So
nice.
I know something.
All right, good.
Yeah, I get confused, so I know that if I would have read that, I would have slipped something from there into this. So I thought,
I see. I appreciate the conscientiousness.
And yeah, my next comment was going to be about sort of the negative comments and stuff, because a lot of people, when I post the reviews, it's not just Action Comics, every Superman comic going at the moment, a lot of people will simply just say they're rubbish. They haven't read them. They just say that they're rubbish because they don't agree with the certain decisions that have been made, or obviously people thinking that you're killing off Superman, even though that isn't the case. I can't even imagine how annoying it is. It's annoying for me as a reader, and I know that this, I don't know if you'd class it as an era, but this story arc and this time for Superman comics, whether it's Son of Kal-El, Dark Knights of Steel, Action Comics, this is like top tier Superman comics.
Oh, thank you. I mean, we're putting a lot of love into it. I'll say that, and it's an honor to write alongside people like Tom and Grant. I mean, and the stuff that Mark Waid's coming up with for World's Finest is going to be incredible too. It's a huge honor to be a part of this time, and I just can't. I'm so proud of it. I'm so proud of what everyone's doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I tried. Honestly, getting the opportunity to write Superman has been good for me in a ton of ways, and part of it is I'm trying not to let fans down who look to me as it kind of has this expectation, right? So if we were to see Henry Cavill or Chris Evans, say, be a huge douchebag online, that would be really disappointing, right? Like, it's because these guys represent these characters who are this paragon of virtue, and you don't want to see Superman doing something really lame in real life. If Superman got busted for coke at the airport, that would be a huge letdown.
Yeah, definitely.
Or even if he just said something really rude to someone online. And I kind of try to be mindful of that. Not that I'm doing coke in airports, but I mean, so when somebody says something really rude on Twitter, I try to kind of take a moment before I react, or if I react at all, because I don't want to let anybody down. I don't want people to see the Superman writer kind of suicide bombing his Twitter feed. Some really rude thing to a fan. Because I mean, a lot of these people who are complaining are fans. Some of them aren't. Some of them are just trolls who just like saying mean things. Yeah. But I do kind of have this, WWSD moment, like, what would Superman do? And try not to disappoint anybody. Yeah. So it's been really great to have Superman's voice in my head, basically. And sometimes I do respond, especially when somebody like trashes a friend of mine. Yeah. That I do there's some moments when I do feel protective, and I say something in defense of a friend, or in defense of someone of some fan who just said something that they liked. Yeah. It bothers me when somebody's like, I love the art in this issue, and someone else is like, are you kidding me? It was traced, or this guy sucks, or so-and-so's better, or everything was great back in the day and not now. Yeah. It bugs me when somebody just craps on somebody's love for a character or love for a book, for literally no reason, just because they think they got a dunk on someone. So sometimes I get a little protective, but I try not to do it in an abusive way, or in a mean way, or in a way that Superman would be disappointed in.
Yeah. Yeah. Because sometimes I think, well, even for me as well, if it's someone digging on me, then I don't mind so much. But if it is somebody else that I care about, then it's got more of an impact on me. So that totally makes sense. And I think I've seen a few, not you necessarily, but I've seen some artists or writers clap back at some of the trolls, and sometimes I'm like, yes, go on. But, it's good for them to stick up for themselves, and like everything is like comics, writing, art, it's all subject to interpretation, so everyone's got different views on it. So I understand why there might be some people that don't necessarily like it, but it annoys me the most when they just choose not to read it because of what they've heard, rather than actually giving it a chance for themselves. Right.
Yeah. I hope that there has been a lot of editorial shakeup, and there are some things coming up. There's going to be a couple of differences in the books from what it says in the solicits, and so we've had to pivot on a few things, in part because of this fill-in issue. When Ricardo came onto the book, usually we have more of a runway than we had on this. It's not like, we got Ricardo and we got 6 months to get ahead on scripts, and then by the time he starts actually hitting, he'll be able to do the whole year and he'll be caught up. It was a much quicker turnaround. Like, we got Ricardo, he needs to start like tomorrow. So, and the artists who can actually do a full issue in a month are kind of rare. Well, that never need a fill-in issue. That's fast to do a full book in a single month and be able to do that month after month after month for like a year. It's rare to find somebody who can move that fast, especially with like the level of detail. Ricardo is actually quite fast for what he's doing, but it still made sense for us to use some fill-ins because he's also doing covers and stuff, and he's painting those by hand. Those are like paintings that exist somewhere. They're not even that big. It's insane. It's insane what he can do. But anyway, so because of the fill-in issue and the change from the backstories to now the full issue instead, and the annual coming up, we had to change the schedule a little bit. So this arc, this first arc of Warworld Saga was gonna be 6 issues. I probably shouldn't be saying this, but too late now. It was gonna be 6 issues, and now it's gonna be 7.
Okay.
In part because of that fill-in, because of the issue that he's not gonna be drawing. I wanted to write the story to that issue and not just plug someone in for no reason. So there's gonna be a couple of solicits that don't quite match what comes out in that book, and the covers too. And I was like, oh man, I don't think about it so much in terms of, oh, the trolls are gonna come get me. It's more like, I hope the fans aren't disappointed. I hope the fans don't feel faked out or whatever. I do think about not letting fans down because that matters to me. I try not to. I'm not writing stuff just to placate whoever makes the most noise. Like if somebody hashtag Snyder cuts me, I don't, or like just make John 10 again, or whatever. If somebody's just being just a pest, I don't think about that like at all.
No,
I'm like, okay, cool. Like whatever, this dude's a pest. So I don't think about it. But I do think about doing what's best for the character and the property, but also, giving fans things that will enrich their lives and make somebody's life a little bit better. Like give them a story that hopefully inspires them. And if you're writing a story about just some random thing, like Alien, I love writing Alien. I love it. I love that property. I'm not necessarily trying to inspire anyone with that book. That's what? Hey, Ashley, thank you. Yeah, I'm not so much trying to inspire people with that. That's more of like inspire people to piss their pants kind of a thing. It's a horror story, and I'm trying to tell stories that matter to me in that book too. But it's not like writing Superman, where you feel like you have this responsibility to actually, make their lives better in the way that it made mine better as a kid.
Yeah.
There's a responsibility there that I really feel. So anyway.
Awesome. And then so the worst thing about this issue, in terms of it's not in terms of the story or your writing being bad or anything. I'm just saying, it's the United Planets are literally watching all of these events unfold. They're not stepping in. They've obviously made the decision based on what Tharos has said, and they clearly know of Superman's fate, and they decided that they're not going to take any action towards it, and they're not even going to tell John, his son, of what's happened, which is just awful to even suggest. But obviously he's gonna, we know how curious John is in Son of Kal-El, so we know something. He's not going to just let that go because it's obviously his dad. So assuming that he will eventually find out, will there be a bit of a crossover between Action and Son of Kal-El to explore that, or is it going to be very separate in terms of how he reacts to that? If you can tell
for a little while, it's going to be separate.
Okay.
But the lines, the stories will come together again. And I have, if they let me do what I want to do, it's going to be more than just the 2 books. It's going to be like this big ass event that it becomes quite significant. That will be the super family, of course, but will also be other stuff too. So yeah, we're definitely going to see Clark and John interacting again. It was huge joy to write them on an adventure together in the Superman series before the Superman Monthly, before it went to Son of Kal-El. And I want to show that again, but I also want to bring in the rest of the super family as well, and potentially do like a little family of books for a bit to kind of cross over.
Awesome.
So we'll see if that plays out the way I want it to.
Fingers crossed. And I think this is probably a good time to ask your question, Evan.
I have several. So moving away from 1037 and just talking about Action Comics in general, we've been discussing, at length every episode, back and forth, different things. And so one of my big questions is, during that whole Atlantis, confrontation on Earth with John and Supergirl, where is Connor Kent?
We have not had the space in the books to really bring Connor into the fray. I was already kind of hard pressed to use Kara the way I wanted to, because I love Kara too, and I love that she's, the most Kryptonian of that whole crew. She grew up there, or was at least through a teenager, and I was able to use her in some fun ways, but I never gave her quite as much screen time as I wanted to bring, or John either. Like I had little beats that I needed John and Kara to have, but I also, and Lois was very important. But bringing in Connor too, I wouldn't be able to do him justice in the space of the book that we had. There's only so many characters we can bring in and do right by them, Yeah. And it's a challenge to bring in Connor because we've got two super boys, young Supermen who are basically the same age and look very similar.
Yeah.
So it's and with very similar power sets. So it's kind of hard to bring them both into the book and do justice by both, unless it's just them. So I kind of made the decision, and he was at the time we established that he was living with Ma and Pa Kent, and that's kind of where his home base was at the time. And he was also getting used in Suicide Squad, and he was showing up in other books. And I know there are also other plans for Connor. And as much as I hate to not use him, there just kind of wasn't space for him. It would have been almost worse to have him on screen not saying anything, or just like saying, yeah, bro, you're right, or like some throwaway line like that, and have no real development. I don't know. It just felt like a disservice to use him if I couldn't really use him. I would love to write a Connor book, man. I love Connor. I think he's awesome. But
from this,
there kind of wasn't a place.
I was going to say, from this fan's perspective, even if you just see his head in the background, that's good enough for me. I just want to know he's there. If he's there and he's still, in the family, that's because we haven't seen him for like 10 years because of the New 52. So just put his ear with the earring in there, and that's all. Don't even show the rest of his head. Like that's good enough for me.
Well,
that's just my 2 cents. I'm not telling you how to do your job. It's just my 2 cents.
if they let me do my giant Dan Jurgens run of Superman, there's a thing after the Warworld saga plays out. Immediately after, there's a thing I want to use Connor in.
Cool.
As soon as the table's set again, there's a very important place for Connor there.
Awesome. And then
there was such a the John thing has just been so important this year. It's been all about John.
Yeah.
And establishing that he's good enough to do what he's been doing, showing him really not just suddenly whoop, I'm old now, but really how has he changed? How is he capable? How is he not quite yet up to speed? So it's been very, very important. The father-son thing has been super important, and bringing Connor in just felt like a misstep. It just felt like it kind of would have muddied that water a little bit. So instead, we're going to let him get used in the books where he's getting used for now. But there's something I want to do with him, very important, when we get back to the status quo, which will then be different.
Okay.
And then talking about that same scene, is Supergirl, as you can see, my subtext here is continuity snob, so I need all this to be happy. Is Supergirl the same Supergirl that's in Woman of Tomorrow? Is that same continuity?
Yes.
Awesome.
Cool.
We just gush about that book every single.
It's awesome, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, loving it.
Yeah, I love it. I love the art is.
Yeah.
Tom's writing too. This goes together so well, but every page in that thing is the friggin' Sistine Chapel. It's just so beautiful.
Yeah, I think we say that every week. We say the same thing about that book every week. Just the artwork is just amazing.
Yeah. I would have killed to do a book with Bilkis.
One day, maybe.
I hope so.
Yeah. So we kind of know. Well, obviously, we've come to a close on the Action Comics 1037 discussion, but we kind of know how that ends because we've obviously seen the future state Worlds of War. So how far ahead in the future is that set? compared to this book? Because I don't think there's an actual time scale, is there, as it stands?
That's a little bit of a sensitive subject. I deliberately left it vague. We established that they know on Earth that Smallville, that he was Clark Kent, that Smallville has become this Roswell type, kitschy, touristy place, and that's about all we really say. I mean, we see Superman looking older, but now we see him looking older in continuity as well because of his because he's ostensibly dying. So that kind of covers the base of why he looks different. I never said it was 10 years. DC did that. At some point they kind of put out this timeline thing. There's like, here's the years in which this is when the Gotham shit's happening. This is how old Jace Fox is. This is how far in the future Swamp Thing and everything else. And they just kind of chose this arbitrary number for Worlds of War. But I never gave a number, so I deliberately I don't want to answer that question because I don't want to break anyone's continuity, like I've been saying. I don't want to be like, yeah, but if that's the case, then what about this other thing? And I don't know. I just don't want to. I don't want to break anyone's head.
I was going to ask, because it seems like that you could just stick that future state story into the graphic novel and nobody would notice, and so I think that's cool.
Yeah, that's what I want. I mean, we're going to see a point in the World Saga where it could line up almost exactly with what we're seeing. Like Worlds of War and what we're seeing here are going to line up almost exactly. I mean, costume and everything. Like we're going to see the Kingdom Come S and the cape and everything. And that's what I wanted. I wanted it to be like a promise that we've kept. And if we say that he's been getting killed for 10 years running, that kind of breaks that all down. So please ignore that and just decide for yourself. Now, that doesn't mean that everything's going to happen in the book exactly. Oh, thanks, David. That's super kind.
We're going to read it because we release this as a podcast too. So whenever a comment comes up, we'll read it so the listeners know what we're saying. Go ahead, Ashley.
David Beasley, regular contributor, says your work on Superman has been the most exciting and epic storytelling he's had in a long time. And you know what? I agree.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. God, just wait till you see what's coming. The art is it's like Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, like level beauty. I can't, maybe even better. It's insane. But thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. Where were we?
I think we were at the end of that line of thinking.
Okay.
Let's.
Yeah, I wanted Worlds of War to fit right into this. Yeah. And there was also, and I at some point I went on the record as saying that the Sadie character in Worlds of War was supposed to be Reagan from All-Star Superman, that girl that Superman saves from the jumper that Superman saves in the Frank Whiteley, Grant Morrison book. That didn't quite work, and the reason it didn't work is that I needed Sadie to be somebody that had been saved by Clark Kent's writing and not physically saved like everyone else. That's why I ultimately made the hard decision not to bring Reagan into it. But I still want to use Reagan, and I'm going to try to. Let me ask you guys a question actually about that, because they kind of brought Reagan into. Was it the Greg Pak story? There was an arc somewhere where they brought Reagan out, but they gave her a slightly different name. She was kind of like an amalgamation of two different characters that he had saved. It was Reagan. There was some other girl that he had saved, and they made one character out of her and made her like a rock star or something. And then she ended up supposedly dying, and then it was all fake. I can't remember how it all played out.
I don't remember that. The only other jumper I remember is in the the one where he's walking across the U.S. Grounded, Superman Grounded. I don't know if they brought him and her into that.
I don't recall, but they definitely have brought Reagan out another time. In my mind, it's not. In my head canon, that didn't really happen. Like, that's not the same person. Would you guys? So look, if you guys don't know that story, then hopefully no one will feel betrayed if I brought Reagan in my own way, like if I'm doing something differently.
Nobody here.
If anyone can, I think you can.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
I have a story in mind that you would use her. So
Cool.
Anyway,
Very cool.
I digress. Yet another tangent.
It'll probably be a good payoff for people that have read that because, well, I've read quite a lot of when I've read Superman comics, I know as of now, I'm starting at the beginning and reading every single one, but I'd just choose the ones I've heard the most about. So maybe that's probably the case for people that are already introduced to that character. So I think they probably might not have read I'm not saying that it's not iconic, but they might not have read the Greg Pak one. So it might be a nice payoff for them to see the character back in your work. So yeah, I'd say go for it.
I hope so. Yeah, I would love to. The All-Star Superman story, that was it's one of the most memorable beats in the whole run. And he's doing this other god level feat type stuff. But one of the moments I see most distinctly, the two moments that always pop into my head are when he's trying to save Pa Kent and he's going so fast that he's like his hair and a cape are burning. And the other one where he saves Reagan from the building. And it's like, your doctor really did get held up in traffic. Like, you're stronger than you think you are. He gives her a hug and she's okay. Those are powerful moments in a way that, I mean, for some reason they stick with me in a way that the big, crazy, epic physical feats kind of can't even hang with.
Yeah. And I think I see that moment shared the most as well. It's like every year on sort of suicide prevention day or week, we always see that same imagery shared. So it is obviously one of the most iconic moments for Superman.
My favorite moment in that series is his whole conversation with Lex Luthor, that one whole issue, which is, to me, is one of the greatest Lex Luthor, little vignettes of all time. And this is a great way to transition, because we're talking about Grant's work on All-Star Superman, but we need to get to the main event here and talk about how the Authority series is in continuity, because we need answers.
Oh, that's right. I've been listening to your show, and you were super excited about that. Or like,
we've been arguing about that for several episodes.
I know. I was like, man, I wish I could just tell him, but no.
Yeah. Well, I feel like actually, I can't remember whether you said you thought it was in continuity or not, but I think I won that one.
I stayed neutral. I was Switzerland. I just enjoyed listening to you guys back and forth. I just thought it was a wonderful story and a great companion to your overall arc. So I'll leave it up to these guys to battle it out.
Well, I always said that it was, and it was because of all the little hints, and I'd seen that there had been a panel released from Action Comics which featured the Authority lineup. So I was like, it's the same lineup, because it was slightly different to what we've seen before. So we kind of got the answer that it was because June, or Enchantress, is tweaking what people can see of Superman. So she's obviously hiding his the grey in hair and things like that. My only question as to the continuity is, where's that suit at the moment? Because in the Authority we were introduced those characters, so I'm assuming that was before, that took place before Action Comics now. So does Superman still have that tactical suit, or is it just?
I mean, presumably he would still have it. I mean, he doesn't have it on World, but it's it's in the closet, in the spare room or whatever. The way so the story, man. All right, so here's some behind the scenes. Whatever. What are they going to do? So here's some behind the scenes information.
Okay.
So Grant told their story, and it was a little more divergence from what we were doing than I expected. And Grant we had a way around it, and like, oh, we can just do it like this. What if we had different ideas of what we could do to make it all line up. One idea that we ended up not using was it could be that Superman, the tactical suit Superman, could be literally dying, and he passes off the authority to our world's Action Comics Superman at the end. But that ended up not working for a couple of reasons. The most primary reason of which was Grant really wanting their story to count, like that Superman to be the Superman that we all know and love.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell Grant shit about how to write Superman or what they're allowed to do,
Yeah.
So when Grant was like, no, I want this to be the real Superman, I'm like, cool, like, let's do it. Let's figure out a way to do it. I mean, I am so indebted to Grant for all the work they've done on the character and outside the character, and it was such an honor to work with them. And the stuff that they've made work as far as just sheer creativity of like, we can do this. I mean, if Grant can do crazy things that they've done. God, I keep messing this up. Anyway, let's see. So I came up with the idea that, the Authority in a way kind of collectively mimic Superman's power set. Not perfectly. There are differences, like Superman's vulnerability to magic is kind of summed up in June, what June can do.
Yeah.
And what if we kind of use that in an interesting way? And June is kind of, instead of taking Superman down, June is kind of souping up his powers. So in my mind, Superman and the Authority and my Action Comics World Rising arc are happening concurrently. And it all kind of starts with, so after the events of the Golden Age story with Phil Hester, Superman's radiation poisoned. We see that in the first issue of World Rising. Then kind of off panel, Superman gets the Authority together because Superman's really starting to feel his age, like, wow, I am feeling like weaker as I go.
Yeah.
So he gets this team together, kind of like this off the books kind of Justice League that no one knows, but like his outsiders, gets them together, and he uses Manchester Black to kind of establish the illusion that he's still able to do these crazy things. So it's a combination of June making him more powerful, bringing him back up to his usual power levels, like actually physically doing it, and Manchester kind of masking his physical differences and also just showing the world that his feats are greater than they actually are. So when we see things like Superman parting the seas and everything in Action 1033 or 4, whatever that was, 33, I think, 34. That's really happening because of June, but it's also, it's a combination of June's power and Manchester Black's power. And that would then get us in a place where if we just had Grant change the dialogue just a little bit here and there, that would make it all marry up reasonably well. So yeah, that's kind of how we came to that conclusion.
Yeah.
Okay, but how is Superman in 1963 with JFK?
I think Tasmin already settled that on the show. Or maybe it was Ashley, actually. Yeah, one of you guys actually answered it pretty well, because we've established that. I mean, he's also got King Arthur's Round Table in the
right.
office, and which Grant's foremost love, as far as they've never said that to me, but they have this crazy knowledge of the Silver Age stuff and all those kinds of adventures that Superman was always going on that routinely involve time travel, and Superman talks about working with not just one King Arthur, but two. In his past, in his many generations of adventures, he's time traveled all the time. So to me, the existence of the Round Table in that story makes the JFK thing not a big deal, because it's a time travel thing. Like at some point, he was with JFK. That was not continuity JFK. That wasn't like. Yeah. Anyway, it was time travel straight up.
Okay.
And we, so yeah, that's it.
Okay.
And that's, in a way, that's why the Round Table stuff was in there, to help make sense of stuff like that. He talks about these amazing things that he's done. We've seen him in the All-Star Superman stuff. He's arm wrestling. Like, who are those guys?
Hercules and Samson.
Yeah, exactly. Like Samson from a whole different.
Right. Well, and
right.
That's something that I really enjoy that Grant does in his books, usually the non-continuity books. But they make this reference to some like a huge adventure that we've never seen, and it's just like there was right. In the Fortress of Solitude in the Authority book, there's the TARDIS and the DeLorean and the time machine.
Right. Exactly.
And so,
it was cool seeing the supermobile and everything in the background.
Yeah. And that's just something they do all the time in all their stories, where they just mention something like, "Oh yeah, King Arthur, I did that."
Yeah, to me, Jeff, that's very easily explained through the King Arthur thing. And yeah, like the Hercules Samson thing, or it's just kind of these in passing acknowledgments of these amazing adventures he's had throughout time and space forever. And JFK is at the time was such an inspirational character as well, or at least is remembered that way. Obviously he's not without his failings, but just the mythology that kind of accompanied that time in American history before everything suddenly took a darker turn. That kind of was just this time capsule moment that Superman shows him being a part of, that kind of thematically ties in with the stuff that happens in that book. But yeah, I mean, that's one of Grant's greatest strengths, and a strength that I frankly do not share, where of just really embracing the absurdity of comics and loving it unabashedly. That for me is different. Like Grant has gone on the record as saying that he thinks that all versions of all characters happen in the same continuity, where Batman 66 and Batman 89 and Dark Knight Returns and freaking Adams and modern stuff all ties in together. It's all the same continuity. And to me, that's just a patently absurd thing to say. Yeah. I mean, okay, it's I don't, when I watch Lego Batman with my son and then I read Long Halloween, to me, those are not the same person.
Yeah, very different, different characters.
But that just wraps up what comics mean to Grant and how they perceive comics and how they just embrace even in Authority, where Natasha is fighting actual live internet trolls, in 3D space. It's just embracing the absurdity of it. So to me, getting hung up on little details like the JFK thing, to me, it just kind of it doesn't acknowledge how Grant perceives and how they create comics, and how they perceive the whole medium and how they do things.
How involved were you guys in planning things together? Because obviously in your run, it's the Fortress of Solitude, and Grant's story, it's Fort Superman. Is that just a nickname for the Fortress of Solitude?
I didn't. Okay. So some of these changes that happened were after things had already kind of come out. And when my editor and I were talking about the difference in power levels, because there's this thing in issue 1 where Superman talks about just barely being able to float off the ground.
Yeah.
And that line of dialogue, when we're talking, I was like, bro, this book's already on shelves and he says he can't fly. How can this be the same Superman? We're kind of working out details. And some of that is just, some of that can be explained through the Enchantress's machinations and Manchester Black's illusions and everything. But as far as stuff like Fort Superman, it's just like a nickname. It's something that I just ask you not get too hung up on, because Grant's vision of Superman is such a different thing and just exists in its own space, because it's tying not only in with Action Comics, but you also have to imagine it being part of the same universe as his earlier Superman work.
Well, it's enough for me to know that it wasn't necessarily originally supposed to be in continuity, but then you guys talked about it, decided. So that explains.
Yeah, we talked. Yeah, we talked a lot. And Grant's mind, I cannot sufficiently explain how their brain works. It's just so crazy and so beautiful. We would have a meeting. He and I would, God, Jesus, whatever. So we're talking about a book, and then the next time that we talk, it's completely different. They have this new crazy idea that wasn't there before, and it completely changes everything. And their ideas are constantly in flux and in this really exciting, beautiful way.
Yeah.
In a way that I do not want to hinder or control. So yeah, sometimes we would have a talk, and the next time we talk, I was like, wait, go back to the place where they're Superman is version to 2 different versions of himself from different continuities. It's just, there's a lot to unpack in every conversation. the thing where it's like kryptonite is the biggest lie of all. I'm like, wait. Let's go back to that part. And I think it's awesome. I think this makes their work so distinct and amazing.
Definitely. Well, I'm glad I won that fight, Evan.
I don't know. I think there's some gray area.
I'm so sorry about all the. I'm really sorry about all the.
But yeah, I guess ultimately it is. So.
Yeah, I don't know if it was ever not supposed to be. I just when in the execution of it, that stream and this other stream diverged a little more than we intended, and then we had meetings to kind of bring it back together again and figure out how to make it all work. Because again, like Grant's continuity is just cannot be contained, or Grant's creativity rather, and the imagination is just this thing that is constantly growing and changing, and it's amazing. It's just such an honor to work with them.
So going back to because I listened to the interview you did with the Last Sons of Krypton, and you used the Authority lineup because it was already introduced by Grant. But if you had the chance to bring it in from scratch, would you change any of the lineup in terms of the characters, or are there any of them that you wouldn't necessarily use? Would you bring in a different character in their place?
Sorry, I missed some of that. So that's for the Authority?
No, for using. So in the interview you did with the Last Sons of Krypton, you mentioned that you used the same lineup that Grant introduced in the Authority for Action Comics, simply because they wanted it to be part of continuity and not just a random story. If you were to bring in the same team or the Authority your way, would you change any of the lineup or any of the characters that were involved?
Oh man. I mean, I'm not going to pick apart Grant's work really. I think it was very well chosen. I like the lineup. I like Natasha a lot.
Yeah.
And I like Manchester Black a lot. I think it's an interesting choice. I like that. I mean, Natasha is not an anti-hero. Natasha is a pretty traditional like hero, right?
Yeah.
But someone like Manchester Black and this version of OMAC and Midnighter and Apollo, these characters are not necessarily the heroes in the same way as we often see Superman working with. So to me, it was almost like, and I think I said this in Batman, Superman, and the Authority, like it's almost like a statement. Like I can take these people and I can show them the best versions of themselves and make them heroes, like the heroes that they wanted to be, that they want to be. And I love that. So that's another aspect of the Superman mythos that I really admire.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you gave me like, a week to kind of pick it apart and figure out my own team, I'm sure it would have been a very different, because Grant and I just do things so differently. I'm sure I would have come up with a different team, but I really like the team that they put together.
Yeah, me too.
I was going to say, I love Natasha's hammer. I love how it's super skinny and then the giant, head of the hammer. It's great.
Right. Yeah. We're going to see a new suit of armor for her come together too, which I'm pretty excited about, because, everything gets trashed in the fight. Right. So we see people kind of get, we see like the Thunderdome version of characters going forward, which is going to be pretty neat.
Yeah, that sounds cool. Now, obviously, you can't really tell us everything that's going to happen in this series because, where's the fun in that for the readers? But are there any sort of teasers that you can give us? I know you've given us quite a lot actually already. But are there any main issues that you want us to look out for? I know obviously we've got the fill-in in January where we get to see the backstories of Mongols champions and stuff like that. But are there any other issues that we should really look out for?
I mean, January is almost going to be, I'm really proud of the issue that comes out in December, actually. Miguel's second issue. Miguel does beautiful work. His second issue is even better than his first. And he does such great work. I'm very proud to have worked with him. There's a couple of conversations in that book that I'm very proud of, especially the one at the very end of 1038 that comes out in December that I'm very proud of. And I feel like it sums up Superman's character pretty well. And again, just seeing him in the context of this hopeless cause, like what does Superman do when he's faced with utter failure and they don't even want him there. He's not the savior he wanted to be here. This place isn't really what he thought it was. What does he do next? And there's a character that kind of voices that, and I love getting the opportunity to show his perspective on that was an honor. But January is kind of almost like a soft relaunch of the War World Saga story. Like bringing Ricardo on board really changed the whole thing. and I'm writing to his strength specifically. And that's when the world building and the sword and sandal stuff and all that stuff really starts to legit begin. Like the battle's been lost. What do you do next? And January is when we really start to see that come together and see the new direction of what's going to happen on Warworld. So I would say January, issue 1040.
Okay.
And actually please pre-order the book if you can. The final order cutoff I think is coming up in a couple of weeks probably.
Okay.
So please order book big on that book. I'm very, very proud of it. And it just really, there's just a lot to say in it. And then the fill-in issue, which I believe is going to be March. I think it's going to be the March issue.
Okay.
And there's going to be a big cliffhanger right before that. And then we see at the end of February, everyone's going to be like, what? Like, how did we possibly get here? What happened? And then the March is like this big flashback, like here's what happened, and we kind of see this big jump, and then leading us into this gigantic climactic, like bam, in April. So yeah, March really sets us up for April, which is the final issue of that first like mini arc, like the Warworld Saga Part 1 is going to be April, and then we see what's been happening this whole time and where we're going next.
Okay, cool.
Cool.
Well, we've taken up quite a lot of time already, an hour and 40 minutes, which is a lot longer than I thought. But do you guys have any more questions for Philip just before we cap off?
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of touch upon Alien. You want
Hey!
Marvel? I was just wondering, do Marvel sort of contact the creators and kind of like ask, are you a fan of this, or did you grow up liking this, and would you like to work in that universe, or is it a lot more sort of like Philip's just a great creator, so let's just get him on it?
Oh, thanks. Well, I that was a book I actually asked for, and I never do that.
Nice.
Because I saw the announcement along with everyone else when they were like, they showed I think David Finch covers. Is that right? They had there's a cover, like a Predator cover, where he's holding Iron Man's like head, presumably in that helmet, and then you see the xenomorph in the Guardian's ship, and they're just these all are covers, and I literally yelled. I was like, I can't believe how good this is. I assumed since they already made the announcement, they already had creative teams put together.
Mm-hmm.
But I figured they'd probably also be doing spin-offs the way that they did for Conan, because they had Conan the Barbarian, then they had Savage Sword and the Bellet stuff. So I reached out to my Marvel Zombies editor, and I was like, "Give me this book. You don't even know what a huge fan I am. I just kicked the door in." And they were like, wow, like they really took notice of how like hard I went at that book. And apparently, I didn't know this at the time, but apparently there were already people in the office kind of pitching for me to do that story.
Nice.
Which is kind of cool. Because I mean, if you read Marvel Zombies Resurrection, the whole miniseries, there's a lot of alien DNA in that series. So yeah, I mean, I got a phone call from the other editor, and it wasn't my Marvel Zombies editor editing that book. It was a different guy. It was Jake Thomas, who's no longer there, but at the time he reached out. He was like, "Hey, I hear you really like this stuff, and we really like Marvel Zombies and your Last God stuff, and like, how would you feel about pitching for this?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, dude!" So I pitched them a bunch of stuff, what we could do, and I got the impression that it was kind of a bake-off, like there was somebody else in the running too. I don't know who it was. Or maybe they just had somebody else kind of in the wings in case I face planted. I don't know, but there was somebody else in the mix too. But I pitched it, and they dug it a lot, and that's kind of how that worked out. And then when they found out what a huge fan I was, now I can just come up with new stories for this for friggin' rest of my life. And it just sort of made sense.
What's your kind of your upbringing in terms of like these kind of movies like Alien and like Predator? I mean, they're such iconic characters. Are you like, you must be like a fan of the movies and what have you? And
yeah, huge fan of the movies, and I like the Dark Horse books too, although I came to them kind of late. I'd never been in a comic store at all until like well into my college years. Before that, Dad would bring home this boxes of old stuff from garbage sales, basically from like garage sales or flea markets, and that's most of the comics I had. And sometimes I was allowed to get one off the spinner rack at the grocery store or the drugstore, that were in a way that comics are not really sold anymore. But like a legit comic shop where they were selling cool shit like Watchmen or Preacher or, the Dark Horse AVP stuff. I didn't know about any of that until much later. And, but the movies, I don't even remember how old I was when I watched the first one.
Yeah,
but I loved it. And the same thing with number 2. That one was always on. The Cameron was always on TV. It was playing on network TV all the time when I was growing up. So I saw the version with like commercials and all the bad words bleeped out. But man, was it awesome! And I still think I like the first one better. Like the second one is probably objectively the better film as far as character arc and emotional arc and everything. Like I really fleshed out the Ripley character a lot better. It made her more of a complete person character. But man, that first one, as far as I'm the guy who loves world building, right? And I just love the world building that was established in that first one. The gross, crazy life cycle that I found out much later was inspired by this specific breed of wasp that plants its young in the bodies of other insects. It was just so mind blowing. Every few minutes, you're getting your mind blown. Like you see the derelict, you see the space jockey, you see the face hugger, like these fucking eggs, and you're like, oh God, what's happening? And then you see Kane with the thing on his face, see the dinner scene, and then you see the big chap and all that. It's just over and over. It's like you're just being in car crash after car crash over and over again. Like you just can't, like, what am I even looking at? This is insane. So that never left me. I just love how even before, so Alien 3 established that different hosts make the aliens look different.
Yeah.
That was an idea that I was already playing with, even after seeing the first and second films. We lost some people.
No, I just figured you guys are having a great conversation, so I'll just give you guys the floor.
Okay, nice. But yeah, let's see. I was playing with that idea even as a kid. I would just sit in the back of class and just ignore whatever was happening and just draw what if aliens came out of, eagles or dragons or snakes or whatever, and just draw different kinds of crazy looking xenomorphs. So when the third movie came out and we saw a quadruped, I was like, I just exploded with excitement, like, yes, like I was right, kind of a thing. And they were doing this crazy shit in the comics, like the rhino and the alligator versions, everything like that. I didn't know what was happening. But anyway, I'm a huge Alien fan. I love writing that book. And hope to do it for a lot longer.
Do you think you might dip your toe into the world of Predator when those books start coming out, or?
I'd like to. If I had to pick one, my heart belongs to Alien, but I do love the Predator stuff too. If I were to do the Alien, if I were to do an AVP type universe that kind of tied it all together, I would handle it completely differently than the movies have done. Yeah, and even differently than the comics have done up till now in Dark Horse, and it would be a complete reinvention in a way that I'm not even sure would be welcome by 20th century. So, so I probably won't get the keys to that particular car, but we'll see.
Well, I mean, I'm really excited for the new Predator movie coming out next year. So, I
hope it's good. I mean, I know they're not always good. I like the first two. Yeah. I thought Predators plural was a terrific sequel to the original Predator. Right. I loved it. That's one of my favorite ones. Yeah. But they're not all good, as we know.
The Predator was a bit
a little rough.
Yeah.
What was the one with the dogs? Wasn't there predator dogs or something like that in one of them? I remember. I think that's quite a recent one.
That was one of the newer ones. I didn't mind that aspect as much, but there were different. Yeah, I don't know. We probably shouldn't go down a rabbit hole. I don't want to talk shit. I don't like talking trash about someone else's creations.
Yeah, agreed.
We have different visions of what things should be.
We have lots of fun with Tasmin about these franchises because she doesn't know any of the jargon or terminology.
Oh yeah, when you say face, I call them crabs, and I can't remember what I called the egg things.
The ovomorphs.
I think I just called them eggs, didn't I? I think.
Probably. That's what most people
Yeah.
do.
It's an egg thing, yeah.
I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of those. I think when they came out, like I can see why they're so iconic because it was like the first of the kind, especially Alien and the first one. I haven't seen all of them myself.
Here we go.
Oh,
This
great.
This is a commemorative glass that was made for me. I did a big signing,
awesome.
a big
nice.
Alien event at my home store, Third Eye Comics. You can't quite see it because it's covered up, but that's the logo of the store back there.
Yeah,
and they do different varieties of the mascot in different settings. They put a face hugger on one of them.
Oh,
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Be it the festive season. Just a quick one. Be it the festive season. What kind of movies are going to be playing in your household? I expect something like Die Hard, maybe Batman Returns.
Batman Returns would be fun. I don't really arrange my film queue according to the season per se. So I hadn't really thought about Christmassy type movies. There's a few shows that I want my son to see. Like he's already seen, but like we'll put on Charlie Brown Christmas, and we'll put on Muppet Family Christmas.
nice.
Gosh, what else? He actually likes Nightmare Before Christmas, which surprised me because he doesn't like spooky shit in general. Yeah, it's a good one, but he doesn't usually like scary stuff. But he does like that movie a lot. As far as like stuff I'll be watching, actually, there's some stuff I got to watch for work. I'm actually working on a spy thriller / mystery type thing that I need to bone up on some noir and some spy thriller type stuff like John le Carré kind of things. So I have some things that I'll be watching, but mostly for work.
Well, I've just been putting Alf on every day, pretty much, and The Grinch. I love The Grinch. That's my favorite.
You say Elf?
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you seen it?
Well, yeah. You know, like the old TV show?
Oh no,
Elf. With
Elf.
Will
Oh,
Ferrell.
yeah, sorry.
Sorry. No, okay.
Will Ferrell.
That makes a lot more sense. I was like, God, I haven't heard anyone bring up Alf in friggin' decades. Okay.
I
I
remember.
have no idea what Alf is, but
Yeah, I know.
yeah. Well, I'm gonna leave it there because we've taken up far too much of your time. But yeah, huge thank you for taking the time to talk Superman with us again today. It's been
of course, my pleasure. Yeah, it's great to see you guys again.
Yeah, the next issue of Action Comics, which is issue 1038, is out on the 28th of December. I think. I'm not sure if that's changed since the last time I wrote these notes.
That sounds
but
correct.
yeah, I can't wait for the issue, and I'm sure the listeners can't wait as well. A huge thank you to our Patreons for supporting us. We say it every time, but it really does mean the world to us. A special shout out to David Beasley, who we heard from earlier, and David Owen from the House of Al. Thank you again for your support. For more information on how to support us with our Patreon, you can see the link just there or in the description of this video. Otherwise, you can support us by sharing the video, spreading the word about our podcast, and giving us a bit of a like and a share on social media. And again, the links are in the description of this video. To those listening live, thank you so much for joining in. I love getting to interact more with you guys. It's so much fun, especially having a guest on as well, because we get to see your questions and what you think of them as well, which is, well, in this case, it's been nice for us all. And to those listening at a later time, thank you for taking the time to do that. And if you ever do get a chance, please do come join us live, because it is, well, more the merrier. And I think that wraps up all of the thank yous. There's quite a few there. And again, another thank you to you, Philip, for joining us. And we'll see you next time for episode 26.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Look forward to the next one.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.
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 Welcome to The Aspiring Kryptonians, a podcast for Superman fans, hosted by Superman fans and focused around all things, you guessed it, Superman. After all, we are aspiring Kryptonians. From comics, TV, film and animation, each week we discuss our thoughts on the latest releases, news and even some retrospective reviews. So without further ado, let's get the show on the road.